Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to Growers Live. Excited as always to be here. Josh Satin here, and got a really special guest tonight. I know I always say that, but this one I'm really excited about. And before we get into that, of course, a few announcements. Just a little update. First of all, if you haven't been following along, I am no longer at Raleigh City Farm. I'll be farming at my home again, and I'm in the process of rebuilding my farm. So check out my YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed over there, and you get to see all that action. Coming up on No-Till Growers, we got lots of cool stuff. The podcast situation, Jesse is still cranking out episodes once a week. We also have No-Till Flowers, which is a new podcast. Hopefully you guys are checking that out. That's with Jenny Love of Love and Fresh Flowers. And there's a lot of cool information in there about not just growing flowers, but all sorts of other soil management and all sorts of cool stuff. In terms of videos, we've been kind of slacking lately, but mainly because traveling's tough with COVID and we're all really busy. But we're doing Elisa Growers Live. We'll start getting into videos again in the spring. If not sooner, we'll see. And so Growers Live upcoming shows. We have on January 19th, we have Shannon and Michael Wammond of Hillview Farms. And on February 2nd, we have Jody Roebuck of Roebuck Farms in New Zealand. So that should be super, super cool. And in terms of No-Till Growers, you guys know we love giving away content for free, and we can't do that without the support of you guys, the Patreon members especially, and you guys have been amazing, and we're just blown away by the support of the community and everyone that's wanting to help out and be part of this, and we just really thank you. And if you're not already part of that, patreon.com/No-Till Growers, go check that out. And one perk you get is to be able to ask questions for the guests before the live questions. So I have a bunch of questions for Patreon members tonight, which is awesome. And the other thing is that we are now taking sponsors on this show, which I'm really excited about. And the first sponsor tonight, fittingly, is Farmer's Friend. And it's no secret that almost everything grows better in a tunnel. Bring the benefits of greenhouse production to your veggie or flower farm in an affordable and easy to assemble package with Farmer's Friend Caterpillar Tunnel Kits. They're quick to move and build, come in a variety of styles and sizes, and include everything you need to make installation a breeze. Plus, if you order 2 or more tunnels of any size, you'll get free shipping on your entire order. I just received 2 of my Farmer's Friend tunnels. I'm really excited. I also own their greens harvester, and so far I've been super happy with the tunnels. And also be sure to check out Farmer's Friend's growing selection of small farm tools and supplies like pyro weeder, silage tarps, landscape fabric, row covers, shade cloth, irrigation kits, and more. If you're ready to increase efficiency on your farm and earn higher profits with less work, visit Farmer's Friend today. So with that sponsorship, I am really excited to bring Jonathan Dysinger, who is the owner, founder, inventor, I don't know, all sorts of titles. I'm sure Jonathan wears a lot of hats, a Farmer's Friend. And I'm really excited to have Jonathan on also because, we've had a lot of farmers and growers on, but there's a lot of people involved in the farming community, and Jonathan's been really important in small scale farming. So let me get Jonathan. Good evening, Jonathan.
What's up, Josh? Appreciate you having me on.
Dude, I am so excited to have you here. I know we chatted a little while ago just to touch base, but and you were telling me that you have not been on a podcast or any sort of interview sort of situation yet.
Yeah, I've been under the radar.
I'm just blown away, man. You bring so much to the small scale farming movement that I'm excited here to pick your brain and have everyone else pick your brain too. So thanks for coming tonight. Absolutely. So first of all, before we get into Farmer's Friend, I want to hear a little bit more about you and your sort of background with how you grew up, and you have some farming experience or family farming experience. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So my parents started farming like before I can remember. So I mean, like when I was 3 or 4 years old, we started farming. My parents both came from teaching, but really had a desire and felt a conviction to raise a family in more of an unconventional lifestyle. So they wanted to be more available for their kids. And so my grandparents had purchased like a 200-acre farm here in Middle Tennessee, and they wanted their kids to come like live on the farm with them. And everybody was like, no, there's no way, that's never going to happen. And then a few years later, my parents ended up on the farm and decided that they were going to give farming a go. And this is, 23, 24 years ago, something like that. And so, there wasn't a whole lot of resources available, and it was a hard go, but we just, worked hard and lived cheaply and just made it work. And, learned a lot of hard lessons. Like starting out, we were just pretty much doing strawberries for like, that was our cash crop. And we're like, you run all the numbers on paper and it's like, it makes sense, right? You can do a big strawberry crop, sell it for a bunch of money, and then it's enough to last you the rest of the year. Yeah. Until, a freeze wipes out the whole crop and you end up like, it's just, so we learned that lesson really quickly. And so then started diversifying into vegetable production, and fairly early on started a CSA. But the thing that was interesting about the CSA that we were doing, which was very, well, I don't know anybody else in our area at the time that was doing it, but we were doing a winter CSA. So starting in the fall and going all winter. So season extension and working in winter growing has been something that I've been involved in for years. And so I grew up, on the farm, was homeschooled. It's all we did for up until I was 18, and when I really transitioned into Farmer's Friend. But before that, I was dabbling in different things. I really felt my natural abilities in mechanical stuff, and so like all growing up, I spent a lot of time like figuring out how to do different jobs faster, and making different like attachments for our BCS and lots of stuff like that. And then I got into doing like mechanics and small engine repair and stuff like that. And then a visit to Elliot Coleman's farm is really what got me moving in the direction of developing tools. And I think Elliot's picked up on the fact that I had kind of a natural aptitude towards, design and inventing and whatever. And he really sat down and like sketched out some stuff on paper about this greens harvester that he had this, it was his brainchild. And he's like, I've tried to get a bunch of people to do this and nobody's come up with anything yet. So like, see what you can do. And at that time I was 15. So we came home from that trip and I was just like, excited about seeing what I could do. And it was kind of like a back burner project for a few years. And then, when I was 18, I had a working prototype, and we went and my dad and I drove all the way up to Maine and demoed it at Elliot's farm with Johnny's. And they were like, how soon can you be making these? So that's basically where it started.
Wow. So how long ago was that?
That was in the spring of that was like March of 2012.
Wow. Okay. So it really was the greens harvester was kind of the first invention for you. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay. And we can blame Elliot Coleman for giving you a kick in the butt there, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an awesome story. And so you went right into production at that point, or were you guys like, how did that work? Like,
it wasn't that smooth, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, I completely believe that. But what was that like?
I don't know. For some reason, I've always had this idea that I could just do anything if I just put my hand to it. So I was like, sure, we can make them. And I mean, that was the plan all along, is to like manufacture these. And, Johnny's is telling me, hey, we can sell a bunch of them. And so I came back from that trip like, okay, we got to gear up production. The Lord had really blessed, and we had I was able to get connected with a retired engineer who was from our area, and he had helped a lot. He had a lot of manufacturing experience. And so he kind of came in and coached me through this process of getting up and going. But it was not without its challenges. We started out really trying to do everything ourselves, like all the production, the machining and everything. And Johnny's had told us, hey, we're thinking we'll sell like 250 of these a year. Because that was kind of like the numbers they were selling of the other little sickle bar, like red basket one. And we sold 250 of them like within the first 3 months, I think. And so like from the very, very beginning, we were back ordered and we couldn't keep up, and we're like working in this tiny shop trying to, machine all these parts and working around the clock. Like it was crazy.
All right. So do you have any idea how many greens harvesters you've sold at this point?
Shoot, it'd be fun to, I mean, it's thousands.
Yeah.
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'm going to guess like 6,000 to 8,000.
Wow. You think about how many farmers are using those on a regular basis. And yeah. I'm one of them. Like I've told you this, I'm sure you've heard this from plenty of farmers. Like you cannot get by growing baby greens without that tool. I don't know how anyone made those crops profitable until that existed. So for all of us farmers out there, just thank you. So
it's cool to see.
Yeah, man. So what about some of the other products? Like you mentioned that you we're into winter growing with your family farm, but was that sort of the motivation behind the tunnels and some of the other stuff? Talk about some of those products.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, like our vision early on was like try to not just be like a shop that just sells anything and related to agriculture, but to sell stuff that was like um, either significantly better than what competitors were doing, or at a better price, or just trying to source things that were difficult to find. And so, really, like our second product uh, was actually the salad spinner that we sell, which is a Chef Master. It's a good quality spinner, and it's like $150 rather than like $300 or whatever the dynamic one is that a lot of people use. So we thought that's pretty cool. It gives good value. And then quickly we started selling silage tarps, which was an interesting product because like that was right about the time like JM was really making silage tarps kind of popular, and they were hard to find. Like you couldn't find them very easily. And so we thought, hey, let's bring these on. So we found a supplier, and we ordered like one pallet of them, like two rolls of this size and like two rolls of that size, and that started selling pretty well. And then now we sell like literally shipping containers full of silage tarp every year. But then it kind of transitioned. Like I'm trying to think when. I think we started selling Caterpillar tunnels in like 2016, fall of 2016. And I mean, the way that kind of started is like I was starting to see that Caterpillar tunnels were becoming like more and more popular, like more and more people were pushing them. And what I didn't like was the fact that the way people were getting pushed is like this DIY direction, like go to the store and buy the pipe yourself, and buy this bender and buy all these different things, and bend all your pipes. And it's just there's a lot of hassle factor involved in that. And so we started looking at it from a perspective of like, well, there's obviously an interest in this product, but somebody needs to make it more accessible to people. And as I looked at like all the costs of different things, I realized like we could almost make a kit of everything, like art pipes already bent, everything you need, really high quality kit for the same price that you could go buy the raw materials at at the hardware store at Lowe's or something. And so that's essentially what we did. And I honestly, looking back, like I would not even begin to guess that it would have been as popular of a product as it has been. It started out relatively slow, but then fairly quickly, like people started, buying them pretty extensively. And then, I mean, we've sold them from, I don't know, like right now we're packing up a shipping container of 16 tunnels going to a farm in Hawaii. Like we're selling them all over the place. This is crazy. I would have never guessed it.
It's amazing. I think both for me personally, like the harvester and the tunnels, I think just fit a spot in the market for the small scale farming community that just they don't exist. I mean, for me, like I DIY'd a tunnel and I would never do it again. And I even like when I made a video about it on my channel, I was like, just buy a kit, like just so much easier. And your prices are like, I don't think you can even build a tunnel that cheap, or probably about the same price, and the time you save is incredible. So
sure.
it's been really cool. It's also been cool to see you guys designing alternative versions of those kits and different accessories and modifications and stuff. What are some do you guys have plans for new products in the next year or two, or anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, we certainly want to flesh out the whole product category of the tunnels. We see there's a lot of demand for tunnel stuff, and not just Caterpillar tunnels, but like larger tunnels. So right now, our biggest limitation is space. So we're in a very small shop, and our new facility that's under construction right now is scheduled to be finished in like July of 2021. So once that's done, we're going to have a lot more space to think about, okay, what can we do next? Right now, we just want, honestly, and I hate saying this because it sounds like really terrible, but like our number one priority right now has just been like keeping our head above the water. We're not putting a whole lot of energy into engineering new products right now. And, that's on the verge of like changing, but it's just been, especially the last year has just been crazy. But one that I will mention is we have a I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I should mention it or not. Customer service will be upset because they'll be getting
Oh, John,
calls tomorrow.
come on, spill the beans, Jonathan. No, just kidding.
So
Yeah, don't get anyone
no,
else in trouble.
yeah, it's fine. They'll just have to live with it. So we've been working on a greens bubbler kit for a while, and it's one of those things that it's like everybody just DIYs their own, and it's no big deal, right? But at the same time, like it's hassle factor. Like you got to figure out which blower is the best one for you, and I don't know. It's just it can be tricky sometimes, especially for people who don't have like mechanical aptitude or have done a lot of DIY projects and stuff like that. So, there's nothing like revolutionary about a bubbler, but we have come up with like a few really unique things that I think are going to set it apart from anything that people have DIY'd. Like there's some really cool stuff, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we've come up with some stuff that's really different than the way other people have been doing it, and I think it'll make the product worth like buying just because of the cool things that we've been able to do. So,
all right, so
we'll talk. It's basically what happens when you put like an engineer on developing a bubbler kit for 4 months. I mean, it's bound to be like pretty legit, or really, really, really expensive, one or the other.
All right, so we'll talk later, Jonathan. We can yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited. I'm having to rebuild my whole wash station right now as I brought everything down to the Raleigh City Farm and I brought it home, and now I'm like, do I want to do it this way? I'm trying to like rethink about it. So, yeah. But I think what you're talking about when you're the products we've talked about, they create a way for people to do things easily. And yeah. I think that farmers, and I know you mentioned this trait too, that we want to do everything ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like hands down, you meet every farmer, they want to start the seeds, they want to build their tunnels, they want to do everything. And I don't have time for all this stuff anymore. And for me, I ordered the irrigation kit from you guys, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go source all the parts. You just send it to me in a box and I put it together. And there's so much to save. I don't know. I could have saved $50 or $100 doing it myself, but to me, you send me the box and it's ready to go. So a greens bubbler kit would be really cool. And I think that's the kind of stuff that makes farming just so much better and quicker and efficient. Yeah. So, and my DIY skills, I mean, I'm decent, but some people it's like, well, the kit from you is going to be better than anything they can put together. So that's very cool, man.
And there's some products that we've done that aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily maybe fall into that mold. And the one I'll mention is the pyro weeder. So, our pyro weeder is it's got some unique factors for sure. Like we're one of the, I guess the Red Dragon or whatever it's called, they have one with the tank mounted on it. But, the other options didn't really have the tank mounted on them. And that was something that we'd gotten some feedback people wanted. But the big reason we went into that is because the guy that was making a lot of flame weeders, who is a friend of mine, and I know him, and we had conversations, but he only wanted to make a certain amount a year. And so what would happen is he would make say 200 of them or something, and they would sell out within the first quarter of the year. And then he wouldn't make any more till the next year. So he'd have this crazy long list. And I'm just that's not fair for the industry. Somebody needs to have those, in stock and be able to ship them whenever somebody needs. So that was kind of our desire to get into that, is because we didn't feel like there was an option that was really available and or affordable. Because our entry level pyro weeder is $695, and I think some of the other one that was tank mounted was over $1,200. So we wanted to have something that's available readily and also a little more affordable. So cool. Yeah, that's kind of how we decide what products to bring on.
All right, so let me switch gears a little bit and then we'll get into questions. Something else that I don't know if everyone knows about, but you guys take the education and promotion side of small scale farming very seriously as well. And hopefully people have seen some of your YouTube videos that are just mind-blowingly cool. And a shout out to Nick. He's just an incredible filmmaker too. So Can you talk a little bit about that sort of side of Farmer's Friend and what's going on there?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, some new news on that is this morning I actually got to preview the trailer of season 2 for our Good Life series, and I was just so excited. I mean, it really it actually brought me to tears a little bit, because it was so. I think we've done a really good job in this second season of capturing some of the the epic challenges that farms have faced in 2020. Um, it's going to be really awesome. And, a big part of what we're wanting to do is not only just equip people, but also do educational content, which is something we really haven't gotten into at all yet. But our other branch of this is inspirational content. And that's where we see that Good Life series. It's not like we're not promoting our products. I mean, in a very like sly way we are, but really it's more about like inspiring people with the stories of other farms. And, yeah, so it's super exciting. We got, the new season is launching here in a few weeks, and we got some really epic stories that we're going to be sharing. And again, like the video content, like you said, our team is incredible with the video and photo content, and so we're super excited about showing those in the next few weeks.
Very cool. I know part of like what I do, and I think is, I do a lot of instructional, educational stuff as well. But, when I go to visit other farms, I try to make them as beautiful as possible and sort of like show people. And, I was also talking to JM about this when he was on the show about, Growers and Co. and the magazine that they're doing and some of the video stuff and just like showing other small farms being successful and doing this and becoming inspiration to other growers out there. And I think I take that very seriously. Like taking the time to showcase another farm is really special because there's so many beautiful farms and unbelievable farmers out there. And you guys do a great job with that. So I'm really looking forward to second season. Yeah,
it's exciting. This year we kind of taken a little bit of a different approach. They're going to be a little bit longer, which I think hopefully will be a positive. We get into a little more detail with people, and we actually spent like 2 days on each farm, and so that gave us the opportunity to really get into the groove of like how the farm operates and what their story is. And so I think this year we're going to be doing a better job about pulling out the story behind each farm and less just kind of like highlights.
Yeah, I usually try to do everything in one day, and it's very hard. It's very, especially if you haven't met the people yet, and you show up and you're like, "What's the story here?" And then the weather's always a factor too. So, very cool, man. All right, so let's get into some questions. So as you guys know, if you've seen the show before, we take questions from the Patreon members, and I have a bunch tonight, which is awesome, and they're very good questions. And if you guys have questions in the live chat, please get them in, and we'll get to them when we're done with these questions. And if you can hit the like button, that would be great too. So, Jonathan, here we go. Patreon questions. Daniel Truby-Weller says, in the past, caterpillar tunnels were not meant to be a replacement for permanent high tunnels, but instead focused on being movable around the field. With the new end well options, do you see your tunnels as affordable substitutes for more costly high tunnels?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely a more affordable option than more costly high tunnels, obviously. The question is whether it's a substitute or whether it's just an addition or like a different flavor of kind of the same thing. I still think that the caterpillar tunnels are ideal for situations where you want a less permanent option, or maybe you are going to be moving it. I don't really think that one replaces the other. I think caterpillar tunnels are a great option when you're getting started because they're really affordable. The barrier to entry, even just the assembly process is very easy. Like we've tried to break down like all the barriers. So you look at our instruction manual, and like the goal is anybody after like flipping through that would be like, whoa, that looks easy. Like I could do that. Or, you watch our assembly video, and like the goal would be anybody could finish watching that and say, oh yeah, I got this. Like we want it to be easy. And so there's obviously some value in that. But I've heard, I don't remember who it was, but I heard somebody refer to caterpillar tunnels as like a gateway drug to like real tunnels. And I think there's probably some truth to that. Like I don't think one necessarily replaces the other. It's just, there is something attractive about like being able to spend, less than $2,000 on a tunnel that you can make $10,000 in 1 year. Like the ROI on that is just pretty awesome, and you're not going to get that with a full-size tunnel, at least not that I've seen.
Yeah, I just went through this whole decision-making process, and I agree with you completely. They're different products, and I think one thing that was really important to me was getting things set up quickly. I mean, some of those bigger, more expensive tunnels, like they take a long time to build, and that can be a challenge if you're trying to get things started quickly. If you're short on labor, short on capital, everyone's short on capital. So
Mm,
I think you're right, but it's accessible to people,
yeah,
and you can put them together kind of wherever. And the thing I also like, especially if they're new farmers, and is that you can move them. I,
yeah,
I don't I I just put one together and I'm like, I don't really want to move it, but that's just me. But you can, or if you like change locate, like if you're leasing land and you need to take
yeah,
the tunnel with you, or you just put it in the wrong spot. Like that's a huge thing when you start a farm, like, and you
mhm,
make the mistake of putting it in the wrong spot. So
yeah,
all
exactly.
all really cool things.
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of customers that are, buying them because of that fact in regard to like not owning land or being on leased land. Like it is a lot easier to just take down a Caterpillar tunnel and move it than it is a more permanent high tunnel structure.
I know, like 10 Mothers. I know you guys did some video stuff with them,
Yeah.
and they're pretty close to me. And they were on leased land for a few years, and now they're on their farm, and they moved all those tunnels over there. So they were
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, we can just take them with us."
Yep. Yeah, it is
Very,
a nice aspect of them.
yeah, for sure. Okay. Chris Fenning says, "What has kept Farmer's Friend from releasing a sliding end wall door kit and an anchoring kit, which would include more wind bracing and earth anchors? Curious why a swing out door was chosen over a sliding door."
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple aspects of the question. Like, is the what was the choice with the swing outdoor? You know, we probably should have looked more into sliding door for sure. Like, our big goal with the end wall was to create something that wasn't like extremely difficult to assemble. So, I mean, even the Dutch door end wall as it is, it's way more involved and complicated to assemble that one end wall than it is to assemble the entire tunnel. It's just there's a lot of different like moving components to an end wall, and getting a door really square and to where the door jam doesn't like knock and all these issues like on a structure that's relatively unstable already. Um, it can be tricky. And so the reason for the Dutch door and the where the top and bottom open separately or can open separately at least, was that we wanted to be able to ship the door panels completely assembled. And so the top and bottom part they come to the customer completely assembled. They're welded. Um, the hinge tabs are already welded on, and so it made it really easy. Whereas like a big sliding door, the advantage of a sliding door though, that we really need to probably look into that, because the advantage of that is, it doesn't matter so much about it being perfectly like square and everything. It's just on a track, and everything below the track just sort of hangs and slides. So I mean that's probably a good option. We also did the zipper doors, which, that actually is, we have the double zipper that's been for sale for a couple months, and we have a single zipper that's dropping any day now, which is going to be sub 200, which is cool. Um, but those are just really easy to install. It takes like 10 or 15 minutes, and it gives you that easy way to like open up the whole end of the tunnel for like getting a BCS or a small tractor in and out. So, I mean, we have a couple options. We definitely haven't ruled out a sliding door, and it's something that I'll think about some more.
Okay, and the second part of this question was about like anchoring kit and
Oh
more
yeah,
wind bracing and earth anchors and stuff.
yeah. Um, the earth anchors are definitely something we recommend to people if they are in a high wind area. So I bet you, if you go on our website and look at like the knowledge base resources, like if you put in like wind or something, we probably have a whole article on how to deal with high wind situations. So we definitely recommend earth anchors, but for whatever reason we haven't put together a kit where we actually sell the whole thing. Um, Maybe that's just because they're already decently like readily available. Like you can go on and just order them from someplace. So
Okay, I get that question since I just started putting out content about your tunnels. People are like,
mm,
"What about high winds?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Call Farmer's Friend."
yeah, I mean it's one of those things that it's kind of frustrating, to a certain extent, because like we've had customers call and be like, "Oh my goodness, like we just had a 80 mile an hour wind that came through and the tunnels were solid." We've had, I've heard people that have had like large greenhouse structures that have blown away in a high wind situation, and Caterpillar tunnels in the field right next to it were fine. And then, every once in a while we have a customer that calls in and like, I got a 30-mile-an-hour gust and the whole thing blew apart. It's like, it's very hard. And we even spent a bit of time with an engineer trying to figure out can we give like a wind rating on this? And you can't really do that because there's so many variables. You never know how somebody installed it, what their soil is like, and all these different things. So for the most part, Caterpillar tunnels are really, they really hold up to wind quite well. But it does have a lot to do with the proper installation. And so, yeah, we definitely have that resource. I would say jump on the website and check out the knowledge base, because I'm pretty sure we have a knowledge base article about dealing with high wind.
Okay. So obviously one thing I always tell people is like if it's stormy, like close everything. Do you guys recommend that? Okay.
Yeah. You don't want to leave them open,
because then it's just the wind comes in and just lifts it up.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
so that's one thing. What about like the Quonset versus the Gothic? Is there any difference there for wind?
Yeah, the classic, we refer to it as classic.
Oh,
and
sorry.
The only reason we switched is because we found that a lot of people didn't know how to pronounce the word Quonset. it was kind of funny. People would call it and be like, "What's that, Quonset or what?" It's like, okay, we'll just call it classic. So the classic shape definitely works better with wind. We've seen more damage on Gothic tunnels, and it's because it has that flat sides on, that just can catch the wind more, and it just tends to buckle right at the joint. So if somebody's in a high wind situation, we definitely recommend the classic. And I would go with the 14 gauge. The 14 gauge is a lot stronger. It's like significantly stronger.
Okay. And then what about orientation? Do you want to put like the flats? Like if you know your wind's always coming from a certain direction, would you want to put like the wide side towards the wind or the short side, or what do you think?
I would put them like lengthwise with the wind, because you don't really want the wind hitting it broadside.
Okay.
But you don't always have the luxury of choosing exactly which way to do it. So it's not one of those like make or break kind of things. But if you had the option, I would definitely, whichever way your storms typically come in, I would do it like in line, parallel with that direction.
That makes sense. A lot less surface area if you're just cutting through the wind in the shorter direction.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I was just putting mine together, and I was thinking like, man, like really, it's not attached to the ground. In reality. So I guess like anchoring it would probably be good. Is there like, what are those ground anchors that you're talking about?
Well, they're basically a big screw. The earth anchors are a big screw, and so you can get them on different lengths, and you just screw it into the ground. And then it's got like an eyelet at the top, and you can ratchet strap it down or whatever. So yeah, I mean it's a good option for sure. And
where would you attach that to the tunnel?
I would run the ropes through it probably, or do secondary ropes, or like run it up to where your wind bracing attaches on the end, and then pull it down, anchor it down.
Okay.
Yeah, we probably need to put together some more resources on that.
That would be cool. I've been amazed that people have been asking me that so much already, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I just put mine together. So, yeah. All right, very cool. And this is great that you guys, obviously you're getting a lot of questions and you're trying to give people the best answers. So, all us farmers really appreciate that. Cool. I think you answered all those parts. All right. So I don't know how to pronounce this. Solane from Ferme-les-Essarts. Sorry for butchering that. My French is terrible. What's the tool that you wish you had designed, and why?
I mean, I would have to say, like, I wish we would have designed a greens harvester to do an entire bed. And not saying that we're not still going to do it, but I wish we would have done it like 5 years ago. It was something that we were looking into. We designed some stuff, and then we just kind of put it on the back burner.
I feel like that would be tricky for a handheld thing. Just trying to hold it straight, I think, would be really hard.
It would be a little bit different. It definitely. It probably wouldn't be handheld. It would roll along the ground. I mean, I feel like some of the biggest. I got to say, like, and it's not to discredit, but I mean, a lot of times people just throw out ideas, but they don't really know, like, all the ins and outs of like how a design works or something. So, we get a lot of feedback from people just saying like, oh, why don't you just throw some wheels on it so you don't have to like hold it or this or that. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, then the wheels are going to be like rolling over your greens, and then you have inconsistency. You can't put a wheel in the aisleway on either side as gauge, because if your pathways go up and down, but your bed top is level, or if your pathways are level and your bed top goes up and down, those gauge wheels are not going to do you any good, because you're going to be diving in and out of the ground as the inconsistency comes. So if you look at like any commercial tractor pull harvesters, they actually have a big wheel that rolls across the full width of the bed right behind the blade, that keeps the height consistent as it cuts across. And so you'd probably have to do something like that. But I think there's enough people that do greens at a scale that's just big enough to justify something bigger than the quick cut greens harvester, but maybe not big enough to justify a $15,000 like Ortomec tractor drawn one. So I wish that we had something in the like I don't know, maybe like 1,500 to like 2K range that would do like a full 30-inch bed, and is still really light and maneuverable. I mean, TerraTech has a new product. I can't remember what the name of the product is, but it's kind of a similar unit like that. But I think the biggest downside to that is it's a sickle bar rather than like a serrated blade. So it works good for like stemmy crops, but anything like leaf lettuce that has a fatter crop, I think it's going to like really like kind of crush the stem rather than, it works great if it can like snip, but when it's got to just like do a nice clean slice, it's not going to work great for that. So
Okay, yeah, I
there's
think
still room for improvement or room for creating another product. I just wish we'd done it like 5 years ago.
I think there's a lot of that in between small scale and large scale. And as these
Yeah.
sort of farms are getting above an acre or two and still kind of producing in the same way, just ways to increase efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the whole conversation of like, when is the right time to move from BCS to like small tractors? Like, I mean, I think there definitely is legitimate fact that a lot of people have wasted a lot of money on BCS when they should have been working with a small tractor. So yeah, anyways, that's a
Okay.
different topic.
Okay. So don't look for that anytime soon. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that.
All right. All right. We're getting some good information tonight out of you, Jonathan. Thank you. We're if anyone's listening now, you just got to start saving your money, because it looks like we got some cool stuff coming out. And you probably hear this all the time, but man, like getting these kinds of tools or talking to you guys about the things that you're working on and just trying to solve problems, trying to make things more efficient is it's just incredible. I mean, farming's hard enough, and to save time or energy or your back or whatever, is just, it's just mind blowing. It keeps you going from season to season, from day to day. So
Yeah.
very cool. All right, let's move on to another question here. Wendy Brubaker asks, what would it take to upgrade my tunnel, the Gothic tunnel, which was installed in November, to be a more permanent hoop house in the future?
Okay. I think the first step is, if you want it to be a permanent structure, is doing ground posts. So we sell, I mean, maybe she purchased it with ground posts, but you can replace the whole rebar assembly with a solid steel ground post. So we sell, I think they're 4 feet long. You can concrete them in the ground, or you can just drive them really deep in the ground. I would recommend, if it's going to be a permanent, I'd recommend concrete on, ideally like at least all your corner ones, and like maybe every other one in between. It's just I don't know, it's just insurance. Like, you really don't want that thing just blowing away or something, pulling out of the ground. And so a few $100 to do concrete, I think, is worth it. So I would say ground post, because that gives you a really solid foundation to build off of. Everything's nice and solid then. And then, if you want it to be more permanent, you're probably going to want to put like a roll up side, which means putting like a hip board, say like 4 feet up off the ground. You're going to put a piece of 2x4, or you can get like a square box tube, steel tube, or like maybe like a 1x4 steel rectangle, and you mount that all the way across, like up at shoulder height or something, and then you put a wire lock channel, and that attaches the plastic. Then you get rid of the whole rope going back and forth across the thing. You have your bows are anchored tight to the ground with the ground posts and bolted down, and then your plastic is held down to the structure with the wire lock, and you're good to go. Then you can roll up the side from the bottom up, and you can build nice. You can fortify your wind bracing on the ends and build out a nice end wall, whether that's like a Dutch store like ours, or you can just, I mean, we have the hardware and stuff too. You can buy like the tube straps and the end wall brackets and stuff from us, and build out a full wood structure end wall if you want to. So,
Do you see? I've heard personally about people like really just beefing up their tunnels. Do you see that
yeah,
as sort of the next step when people say, "Well, I could just like kind of upgrade this versus like spending a lot more on a different kind of tunnel"? Do you see that happening more often?
yeah, we do, and I think we want to put together more maybe kits, I guess, to make that easier for people because, I mean, the reality is the frame of our tunnels is stout, especially if you get like a 14 gauge tunnel. I mean, most large greenhouses aren't even uh, 14 gauge pipe. They might be a larger diameter, which just give more strength. But I mean, for a tunnel that size, 14 gauge steel is really stout. And so, if you get that, I mean, there's no reason why you can't just turn it into a strong permanent greenhouse, and it won't cost that much. So it's definitely a really good option if you want to go from more of a temporary caterpillar tunnel structure to something where you could actually do automated venting with roll up sides and stuff like that.
Yeah, roll up sides are awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I
Very
mean, I'm
cool.
not gonna lie. The caterpillar tunnel sidewalls where you have to like lift it up to vent is kind of a pain in the rear.
Especially
So
if you have a bunch of tunnels.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
Ray's got like 20 tunnels, and it's like a full time job just keeping them all vented properly.
oh man, yeah. I just was like opening, closing mine for the first few times, and I'm like, man, like if you had a lot of tunnels, like this is a significant chore every day.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, for me, most of the year they're just up, so whatever.
yeah, and I think that'd
Uh,
be the same for a lot of people.
absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Let's see. Wendy has another question. Let's talk end walls and edge protection. A lot of questions about end walls. Wendy's installing scissor doors, the Johnny's design, and feel that there needs to be more protection in our zone 6A. What are some good options for extra ground protection to keep the ground from freezing around the perimeter? Thinking bales of straw, for example. I'm growing ranunculus and anemones first year.
Yeah. Um, I don't really have a great answer for this question. I feel like it's not something that I've seen. Like, I mean, essentially, what she's trying to do, I guess, is keep the frost from creeping in underneath the structure. Um, I would say if that's a real concern, I probably wouldn't plant close to the edge. I mean, maybe the straw bales would keep that from happening, but I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that it necessarily would either. So honestly, I don't have a good answer to that question.
Okay. I mean, people have to realize they're single wall poly,
Yeah,
and I mean, it is, there's limitations to everything. I mean, I would probably say put row cover over your
yeah,
beds in the tunnel.
yeah, for sure.
That makes a huge difference.
Hmm. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Little wire hoops and then row cover over. I mean, you do a couple layers of row cover. I mean, like you say, yeah, the single wall or the single layer poly tunnel. I mean, it only gives you a few degrees of protection really on a cold night, and so it's not like a crazy solution for like really cold. So the row covers definitely help. And growing up, like we always would try to make sure, and it's really important, like that you get out before the sun goes down and put the covers on. That way you trap in some heat from the sun. If you wait till it's already dark, then you're kind of behind the eight ball.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Make sure you go and close up the tunnel, before the sun goes down. Try to get as warm as possible.
Hmm.
Keep the soil warm. I mean, if you keep the soil
Yeah,
warm, that'll make a big difference.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Hmm.
cool. Yeah, I was thinking the same things. Okay. Drew Hundelt has a two-part question. Actually, this is like a many-part question, but we'll work our way through this. Um, how can I upgrade my 16 by 50 foot Gothic tunnel to incorporate double wall poly and air insulation after purchasing extra plastic and wiggle wire? I heard it has something to do with a hip board. So if let's say you're taking a normal tunnel and you want to make it into a double wall, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we don't use the W wiggly thing word because we got like a cease and desist from this nice company that made it very clear to us that that was a trademarked term. So
Who knew, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I was like, I guess, but
So
here we
what?
are
So what's
promoting your product, and yeah. So,
so
anyways,
what's the word for it then?
well, I mean, it doesn't matter that everybody uses it because that's the term that everybody uses. But anyways, we refer to it now as uh,
Okay.
wire lock base and wire lock. Uh, I don't even know, but something like that. Wire. So yeah, I mean, it's basically like what we talked about earlier about how to turn it into more of a permanent structure, or is it a good idea to do that? And yeah, I mean, if you're going to do double layer poly, I'm gonna say like you really have to do the ground posts. You want the base of your tunnel to be solid. So drive those ground posts into the ground, concrete them. You're going to have to do um, wire lock around all the ends and hip board and everything, because the only way a double layer poly works is if the whole thing is sealed. And if you're just holding the plastic on with rope, you don't really have a seal around the bottom. um, so I would do that. I would probably, if I was going to do that, I would probably put like uh, a couple more steel purlin runs down, just to make it really strong. So we have one in the center, and if you're attaching the plastic with rope, you don't really want to put any on the side because it leaves opportunity for water to pool, because it keeps the plastic from pulling down in between the bows, and you can end up with water pooling there, and it'll stretch your plastic really bad and cause issues. So, but if you're not using the rope and you're doing a double layer poly, I would say put a couple more steel purlins. That's going to really strengthen the structure. And then yeah, you just got to do that hip board and wire lock the both layers of plastic in, and then just put blower in there. And I mean, I haven't seen it in person. I know we have customers that have done it. I've never done it myself. I mean, I've done it on a greenhouse, but I've never done it on a caterpillar tunnel. But it is doable.
Okay. So put the baseboards, and then you just got to lock both
Yeah,
pieces of
I mean,
plastic in.
yeah, exactly. So you install one layer of plastic, and then you put the second layer of plastic on, and you wire lock it all the way around the perimeter, just like you did the first one. It's got to be 100% all the way around.
Right.
Um, and then you just inflate it. Yeah.
Okay. But like you said, like you should probably anchor it into the ground too. Otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Because if you're not using rope, which if you're doing double layer poly, you couldn't use rope, because you would just be squishing that. You're trying to end up with an air gap. The rope is just going to squeeze the air out of it. And so if you can't hold it down with rope, then you have to have the ground post anchored,
Okay.
and then your bows are bolted to the anchored ground posts.
Okay. Have you had a lot of people doing that? Or have you heard of that? Have you had any feedback?
Um, I haven't seen a lot of people doing double layer poly. We do have a lot of people that install them with ground posts instead of rebar.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
When the
Uh,
cost is the same, like it doesn't cost any more to do it with ground post than it does with rebar. So, I mean, it's not a bad option. It just means like the other thing that's important for people to know is that the rebar will actually hold in the ground stronger than the ground posts. Meaning, if you drive a ground post in the ground, it's just slick, galvanized pipe. And so you drive it in the ground, it's fairly easy to pull it out. Whereas if you drive a rebar in the ground, all those notches and the gnarliness of the rebar really over time, especially, will just lock into the ground. And so the ground parts are a good option, but you really need to anchor them in with concrete, in order for me to feel comfortable like saying that's going to be a solid structure.
okay. As I was listening to you talking about the ground posts, I'm like, wait, maybe I should have gotten those. But now you're saying that the rebar, I see what you're saying, but like all the ribs and sort of structure on the outside of it.
It,
Okay.
it holds, yeah, it's stronger than ground posts unless you do concrete.
Okay. Cool. All right. So this last one has multiple questions, but I think it's kind of all related here. Where's the future of market farming tools going? Does it have potential to be completely open source like local tool libraries? And do you believe it's the limiting factor for people to get into farming and being successful by not having the right materials, equipments, and tools? So,
Hmm.
sort of the future of tools and the importance of that and those kinds of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, well, I don't know, there's kind of some different aspects to that. The whole idea of open source tools and like tool libraries, like I think it's a cool idea to have like local, um, I don't know how it would be structured, but we've talked about that even in our area, like things like a rock crusher or something. It's an expensive piece of equipment that every farmer would love to have access to, but no one farmer can afford to have a big tractor with a rock crusher. But if you had like, sort of a co-op of people that went together to buy a rock crusher, and somebody comes around and does that, like, once a year at different people's farms and you schedule it all out, that's great. But something like a pyro weeder or a greens harvester or something like that, you kind of have to have your own because you just need it when you need it, and you don't want to have to schedule with a bunch of other people. So I'm not sure if that's what they were talking about with like tool libraries or something. I mean, the whole open source idea of tools is really kind of idealistic, and like I've been at events where that's been talked about a lot, and like, oh, we need to have all these like little artisan like makers and communities that can like do all the tools themselves, like having these big companies that sort of own the market and like ship all over the country. Like it doesn't make sense and whatever. And it sounds really great and like idealistic, but the reality of like little shops like making equipment like what we do just for a local sort of community that they live in is not very the economies of scale with that are just not, it's just not a reality. So I mean, we're very open source about our designs, I guess I would say. Like none of our stuff is patented. Anybody can make a tunnel. Like we've had companies contact us and say, like from Europe or something, and want to like import our products or want to like make our design and give us a royalty or like licensing fee or whatever. And we've just told them like, look, there's not really any point in you doing that. It's just a tunnel. Like we'll give you our design. Just go. Like, so we've literally, given people drawings and stuff and just said, hey, go, just go source the stuff locally. And, we don't need to get a royalty. Like it's not our design. Like it's just a simple tunnel. So as far as that's concerned, like we're pretty open about it. It's just like, there's no point in like posting all the design for a greens harvester because it's never going to make sense for somebody to contact a local machine shop and have them make a greens harvester because it would cost way more than it costs to buy it from us. So I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think one thing that I've seen, which is cool, is that like a couple farms will go in on a tool that maybe they only need a couple times a year.
Yeah,
like
that's awesome.
Yeah, like sharing a BCS if you don't use it very often, like something like that, or maybe I don't know, a couple other things. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like even if you printed up all the design for the greens harvester, for example, like you can't make one of those as cheap as you can buy it from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if we say we gave all the CAD models for everything, it's like, I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm going to say like 20 different individual parts that are all machined. Like if you take all those designs and models to like a local machine shop, and they're charging like $75 an hour, like it's never going to make sense. So I don't know. That's kind of my stance on it. Like I'm not trying to monopolize any like industry, but it's just like it doesn't make sense. Like it's not adding value to, or it's not providing value to a farm to try to make them think that they could DIY something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get these comments all the time if I'm talking about like the tools like that or like a nice broad fork and like, oh, it's just a this and a that. And I'm like, you can't make it that cheap. Like unless you're a blacksmith and you have all the tools and yeah, I see what you're saying about the sort of, it's like, go ahead, make it like whatever,
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, we've had definitely people like, oh, that's ridiculous that the harvester costs, $500. Like you could make that for $60. And, it's like, I would pay you a lot of money if you could figure out how to make it for $60.
That's my new line. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk. If you can make that for 60, let's talk. We can go into business.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess there was a lot in this question. So what about the future of market farming tools? Things you see coming up, things you see people needing or wanting? You're in touch with a lot of farmers. So like what's sort of moving forwards?
I think for us personally, like I feel like a big part of the future of small scale agriculture needs to be integrating more technology. And I'm not talking anything about what we're working on in that sector, but it's just like there's a lot of need for integrating more like technology. I mean, there's a lot of things like I don't know, there's a lot of tasks on a farm, like even just something like venting tunnels or irrigation or stuff that's absolutely zero value add. It's just like it's very it doesn't make any sense for you to have to be putting mental energy into making sure that your tunnel gets vented every morning and every evening, and making sure that you don't forget to turn your water off and stuff like that. Like think about how much more energy you could put into actually making money if you didn't have to think about any of that stuff. And so like I think that's where it needs to go.
Okay.
And so, I mean, there's definitely still room for like innovating more tools like, um, the harvester, pyre weeder, like tunnel stuff, whatever. But like, I think companies that can make like technology integrations in a small farm happen are going to be the, I think that's going to be the next big step for small scale agriculture.
Very cool. Yeah. So I guess the other part of this is a lot of questions that Drew asked, but do you believe it's a limiting factor for people to get into farming and being successful is not having the right tools and equipment?
I don't think it is anymore. Like, I think maybe 10 years ago, it could have potentially been considered a limiting factor, but there's so much resources out there now. And there's so many people that have already like proved that these models work. Um, so I don't think tools are the limiting factor.
Yeah, and nowadays with YouTube University and some awesome books that aren't very expensive, like you can learn how to farm. So I don't see as like the knowledge or the resources being they're accessible to everyone right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get into some live questions here. I know we're almost an hour here, so we're gonna try to take a couple questions. So thanks for all the Patreon questions. They were awesome tonight.
Yeah.
So let's see here. John's asking. I don't know. Can you see that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'm looking at them. I was just
All right,
kind of
cool.
working from the top down.
Oh no, I put it on the screen for you to see.
Oh, you're okay. I had it pulled up on my phone here on
Yeah, don't
YouTube.
worry about that. I'll put the questions up.
Okay, that's sweet.
Yeah. So they're
um,
asking about the new 14 gauge tunnels.
yeah, can you?
Can this be sourced as permanent in-ground double poly roll up side heated nursery?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can. Like we've already kind of addressed that, like ground posts, hip boards, roll up sides, permanent end walls. I mean, it's all doable, and it's all stuff that we kind of already have resources for, but we probably need to do more.
Okay. Any other anything? What else can you tell us about the new 14 gauge tunnels other than they're obviously like beefier?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot stronger. We don't have we're only doing the 14 gauge in 16-foot wide tunnels right now. So you have that extra width, which is kind of nice. They are a bit more expensive, but the biggest reason, well, there's a couple reasons. It's like a lot more steel. It's a lot heavier. The way we have to package them, it's a lot more labor intensive. Like it takes twice as long for us to pack 14 gauge tunnel as it does a 17 gauge, just because we have to bundle all the pipe in so much smaller quantities. But then also like it's since it's 16 feet, all the pieces are a little bit longer, so we have to ship it on a longer pallet. So also a chunk of the additional cost for the 16 footers is actually subsidized, like or us trying to build in some of that shipping cost. So I think it's worth it if you're wanting to make it more of a permanent structure, like John is talking about here. I would definitely go for the 14 gauge.
Okay. Cool. And if you guys are not aware, the lower the number, the thicker the steel.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Not everyone knows that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yep.
Okay. Next question here from David says, if you're building a new shop, is this your first big move?
Yeah.
Maybe talk about your expansion a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So we're super excited about it. Basically, where we've been right now is actually a small 5-acre plot that's actually connected to my family's farm. And so it's been really convenient, really awesome, like starting the company there because we've been, close to the farm, close to home. Like it's been really cool. But we definitely got to the point where, we're having like tons of semi trucks coming through every day, and we're out in a really rural area, and we have big issues with that. We don't even have three-phase power, which is a problem for large manufacturing. We don't have high-speed internet. So like all these years we've been working on satellite internet, which is extremely challenging running an online company on. So this year we actually moved most of our customer service and our web dev team and everything to the town where we're actually moving to. So we have like an office here with, high-speed internet and stuff. So that's been awesome. But so we purchased 15 acres in Centerville, which is about 20 minutes from where we're currently at. And it's a small town, really rural kind of farm town, which we really like that vibe. And but it has all the industrial amenities, fiber optic internet, natural gas, three-phase power, easy access to like I-40. We're just right off of I-40. So, for trucking in and out, it's really great. And it obviously gave us the place where we're at right now, we didn't have any room to expand. We'd already like maxed out our, like it was a road on one side and a mountain practically on the other side. So we couldn't like grow there. So we're going from like a 8,000 square foot building to our new facility is 35,000. So it's like a big jump for us. Um, so
Okay, and
yeah,
also on 20 acres. So are you guys going to be doing any growing there, or like any like
yeah,
more research? Like what's that? What does that
yeah, we
entail?
are. We are. We're doing a whole research or like a R&D like test garden. So we're going to have tunnels set up, products. Customers can come and use the product, see the product in use, and then I mean a big like honestly one of the more exciting things to me is the fact that we're going to have that available and we're going to be rotating all of our team through the farm. So like everybody that works in the company will have opportunity uh, to use the product because we literally have people right now that are like assembling, packing Caterpillar tunnels who have never put one up or never seen one on a farm. And I don't really like that. Like I want people to know what they're doing. So it's going to give us that opportunity to like get our team in the garden using the product. So we're really excited about that.
That sounds awesome. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So when is that? You said July. You said that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's slated to be finished July 31st. So we'll see. I mean, what construction project finishes on time, but hopefully it
Especially
will.
especially during a pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the basically like our big goal is to be moved before peak season 2022. Like if we can move in the summer or like early fall, that's going to be really important for us.
Do you guys have like a seasonality to your business? Like, is there a slow time of the year?
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. Well, 2020 there wasn't, but like
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Um, no, typically like for us the peak is March. So it's like when all the farms are kind of gearing up for their season, they're getting all ramped up for production. It really peaks in March and then, April, May are really busy. And then by June, July, August, it really starts to taper off because everybody's just, trying to figure out what to do with all their squash. So,
So there you go. You got to sell something to them for that. I don't know. Figure
yeah,
something. All right, cool. Let's go on to another question here. This is from Rob Shaw down in Texas. Recently purchased a quick cut greens harvester. I guess that's QCGH, but
yeah,
didn't see an option for a long handle. Will that be available on the website soon?
yeah. Thanks, Ben Hartman.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he just which is cool. Like I've been like he emailed me and I emailed back. We're gonna hopefully like hook him up with something a little more legit and maybe we'll make it a product. I mean basically what happened with that is like early on, even before we started selling the green harvester, we made one with a tall handle. And for a number of different reasons, we felt like it was more awkward to use. And so it's like it's better to be bent over for 10 minutes than on your hands and knees for like 2 hours. So it was kind of like it's still way better. But I will say that's definitely probably the biggest feedback that we get is like, oh, why do I have to bend over? Like that looks like it hurts your back, all this kind of like ergonomic stuff. And so I definitely think that we're to the point where we're going to like totally revisit that and give it a whole, really give it a good go. And that may mean that we make an option for like a stand up handle. So, but to answer Rob's question, it's not an option right now. So it may be an option on the website soon.
Do you have a lot of people? This is a side question. I always have more questions. Do you have a lot of people like throwing you guys ideas like, hey man, why don't you make this? Hey man, why don't you make this? And
Yeah.
I guess if they're coming from Ben, they're probably like well thought out, but like, has those ever turned into products for you guys?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's definitely turned into like maybe product modifications and stuff like that. I'm trying to think. We definitely listen to feedback, and so whether that's feedback from customers giving us like actionable things, or whether it's just customers saying, "Hey, this part's wearing out really fast," and so then we'll figure out how to make it better. But yeah, I mean, we definitely listen to feedback, and so, but we do get a lot of product ideas, and it's I would say the majority of it is like one farmer's like little it's like his issue that he's having and he's thought up this one little thing and it may be like great for him but it's probably not like a viable product for like the whole industry at large. So we get a lot of that and we've done a lot, especially on pyro weeders. We've done a lot of like custom work as far as like somebody wants one a little bit wider or a little bit narrower, or we've done pyro weeders all the way up to like 6 feet wide, just because somebody has a custom application. So yeah, we try to listen and we do get a lot of product ideas.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's some crazy ones out there that you've probably heard.
Yeah,
But all right,
yeah,
just try to get a couple more questions here, and if you guys have a couple more, we'll probably take a few more. Jonathan, you said you're working on a barrel root washer. Any updates? Is that something I
yeah,
haven't heard? I haven't heard you talk about that. That would be amazing.
yeah. I'm not sure when I said that, but I'm not saying I didn't. But it's something that I was actually just talking with Michael Kilpatrick about just like a couple weeks ago. He stopped by for a visit and he was talking about root barrel washer. So yeah, it might be in the pipeline sooner rather than later. I've honestly personally I've never been a huge fan of barrel washers, and I don't really have any great reason for that other than that I just don't like the way that it like apparently like bruises the crops or like the way it tumbles around. I just feel like it looks really rough on crop, but I mean everybody uses it and they say it's great. So I guess I've always been thinking about it from a perspective of like how could we improve that and come up with something that's more gentle. But maybe I just need to forget about that and just make what people already know and want. So
I mean, if it's not broke, like don't fix it, kind of thing. I mean,
yeah, true. I don't know. I guess I've had some maybe it's unfounded thought that maybe it is broke, but I don't
okay.
know.
Are there like I don't have any experience with those, but are those commercially available and like at a reasonable price, or like why are people asking for them?
I think they are somewhat available, but I'm not sure they're available at a reasonable price.
Okay, okay. I don't
It's
even
something
know.
I haven't researched a lot, but Michael was definitely giving me some ideas about it.
Okay, I mean it'd be cool to have. I know there's a lot of people would use them, and
Yeah,
I don't even know where to buy one. So, but
yeah,
I've never needed one, so I haven't done the research.
yeah, for sure.
Okay,
I
here's
think
a
where we grew, like where I grew up farming, our soil is really clay, and so it doesn't work very well. Like the clay, I mean, for instance, on like carrots, it just gets caked on, and I don't think the barrel washer, because we've experimented with stuff like that, and it doesn't work very well. But if you have a more loose, sandy soil, I think it does work really well.
okay. Next question here from Johnny. Do you source the bows or do you bend them yourself? I live in a high wind area. I put the post in concrete with a double layer plastic and it works great.
Yeah, cool. So the first part's really the last part's just
Yeah,
some
just
different ideas.
information. Yeah.
Um,
Do you source
Yeah,
the
so
bows or bend them?
as far as the bows, we actually do source them. So we have a company about a couple hours from us that does all of our bending, and that is only because we don't have the space to do it. So we've already um, told them that we're planning on doing it ourselves, and we're having conversations with steel mills and stuff like that. So, and the reason for that is we want to offer more customization and more options. And when we have to stock like massive amounts of inventory, um, it makes it very difficult for us to have a bunch of options. And so we would like to do more options, but we don't have the it's just ridiculous to stock as much inventory as we have to stock on a bunch of different options. So what we want to do is do all the processing and bending ourselves and just stock a bunch of raw material and then make exactly what we need as we need it. So that's in the pipeline as we move into the new shop. So,
Okay. Um, let's see. All right, here's a question that I get asked sometimes too. John, how hard would it be to split a 50-foot into two 25-foot tunnels if you limit it on space and there's a kit with extra bracing, or do you just have to order them individually? I guess like splitting a 50 into two 25s, or making different sizes out of the kits you sell. I guess some
yeah,
comments on that.
yeah, we've gotten a lot of people trying to do that, and basically what the most common one was people were like, "Can I buy 100-foot tunnel and split it into 250s?" And there was a couple things we did. Like first of all, I think we for a while we had them priced in a way that it was too much more to buy 250s. Like it was significantly more to buy 250s than to buy one 100-foot tunnel. And so people were trying to do that. We adjusted our prices a little bit so they're a little bit closer. But the problem is whether you're trying to split 100-foot into 250s or whether you're trying to split a 50 into 225s, you will be one bow short. So you could split a 50-foot into a 25-foot tunnel and one 20-foot tunnel, but you couldn't get two 25-foot tunnels. We do have a couple options though with that. Like we sell bow assembly kits, so you could buy a 50-foot tunnel and then one additional bow assembly kit, but then you'd have to buy additional steel purlin, and you'd have to buy additional wind bracing, and you'd have to buy additional, well, is a potentially a lot of different things that you got to add and stuff like that. And so it can be, depending on how you're doing the end walls, the plastic that comes with a 50-foot tunnel isn't enough to cut in half and do 225s.
Right.
There's all different things like that. And so what we try to do is price them in a way where we really discourage people from doing that. It can be done, but is pretty significant hassle factor. And so we tried to put the prices a little bit closer to where it didn't really make that much sense to do it once you realize what all's involved in it.
Right. And the wire lock, or whatever we're calling it now, was that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd
Okay.
have to buy more of that. It's like all these different things. You got to like add a little bit of this and this and this, and like it's pretty tricky to do.
Okay, but could you take any tunnel kit and just shrink it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to buy, and we've had people do that. Like, let's just say you can only put up like a 45-foot thing. All right. Well, then you just buy a 50-foot tunnel and you just take one bow off and you cut the purlin a little bit shorter. And yeah, it's totally easy to just make it a little bit shorter.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I always thought about the splitting, but I'm like, there's so many other parts, and it's like, oh, if you want wind bracing or you want just the plastic for the end walls, like you give us enough plastic to do the end walls, but you need even more if you needed to do 4 end walls instead of 2 end walls. So
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So you probably end up having to buy a whole nother roll of plastic. It's just a little bit of a hassle.
Okay. And you guys have it priced, so as you said. All right, cool. Let's see here. Jeffrey says, I noticed your store is out of greenhouse plastic cover. Is that a problem? You're willing to get it in soon? I don't know if that's true or not, but
I'm gonna write that down. I don't think we are. I mean, we have tons of it in stock, so I would wonder like what size he's looking for, but I'll look into it. It should. Right. I would say just so he can order what he needs, just call in because I don't think it's out of stock. I mean, okay. I know it's not out of stock.
Okay, all right, and I guess I have a follow-up question. I know, like with things right now, in terms of supplies, like is that a problem at all right now with the supply chain with getting inputs for your products? How's that going right now?
Yeah, it was actually quite amazing. Like we made it almost through 2020 without any significant issues, and considering our sales were up over 100%, that was pretty remarkable. But somehow we got towards like the very end of the year. I mean, it's not really, I mean, we know what the problem was. Like steel mills started running into issues. So there's just a shortage of steel right now. And so lead times went from, 4 weeks to like 9 weeks. And so we ran out of material. And so we've had to stop selling temporarily on some product. It's been a challenge, and I'm a little concerned about what the first quarter of this year is gonna bring. So yeah, we just do the best we can. But
yeah,
there is some actual legitimate like significant issues right now with steel supply, and it's not just, we're not the only ones feeling it. Prices have gone way up, and supply is just very limited. So it is causing some issues, but hopefully, like we're really, really hoping that we'll be able to keep the product in stock.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about prices because I know like building materials in general are kind of really high right now too. So
we've tried not to like raise our prices on product, but we do have a price increase on Caterpillar tunnels that's going into effect later this week or first of next week, I think. So
right, so buy them all right now. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you could.
All right, the benefits of watching Growers Live. You can save a little bit of money. Order your kits now, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see here. I'll take a couple more questions. We've been on this for a while here. So there's a question about NRCS grants. Does they restrict the purchase of 2 separate tunnels using one grant? Any information about NRCS would be cool, just to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know. I've never heard of that, having issues or purchasing 2 separate tunnels with the EQIP grant. I don't really know. I don't know a ton about grants. There's other people in the company that know more about that than me, honestly. But so as far as NRCS though, like our tunnels do meet NRCS standards. So it's one of those things where NRCS is kind of tricky. Like they meet the national standards, but then individual inspectors or local NRCS reps will interpret the standards slightly differently depending on how they. I don't know. It's just there is quite a bit of variation across the country in how the NRCS standards are actually applied. So for the most part, people seem to have success using NRCS grant money to get our tunnels. We've definitely had a lot of customers use that. So
Okay.
and we also have knowledge based resources on that. So if you go on the website, you can read a whole knowledge base article on how to do the NRCS grant stuff. So
All right. Last couple questions. As I said, KP, any plans for sliding tunnels on tracks or rails? Has that been discussed? Any plans?
yeah, we don't have plans. It's been discussed. I think it'd be cool. It's just the Caterpillar tunnels are such a like. I mean, unless they're anchored to the ground, they're just a kind of a fragile structure. Like you can't just remove the ground post and just slide it along the ground. It would just fall apart. So obviously it would have to be done very differently. Like you'd have to have pipe across the bottom to hold it all together. Our biggest thing is like we try to make everything to where it can ship. And so if you made a rail across the bottom of a whole tunnel out of pieces that are 8 feet long, it's not very strong. It would flex a lot. So we don't have any plans on that, but it's doable. Like that's one of those things that maybe people just need a DIY. Maybe we need to create some resources on how to do it.
Okay. Kirsten's chiming in here. Look, both sides of greenhouse plastic are currently in stock. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. It could have been a glitch. But yeah, if there's issues, just call in. We can help
All right.
you.
All right, cool. And hey, Kirsten. So, all right. So I think we're through the questions here. I just want to ask one question to end this out. I think, Jonathan, you are in touch with farmers all over the place, and you get to visit farms, and your crew gets to visit farms. What are some trends that you're seeing out there? And I know we talked about technology trends, but like, what are some just general farming trends that are sort of like, where's sort of the industry heading right now in terms of growing practices or just anything that you've been noticing? Because you've been in this a little while now. What are you seeing happening out there?
Yeah. Well, to be perfectly honest, like I think that I'll be able to answer that question a lot more in a few months because I've been in the industry. Yeah, I'm like serving the industry, I guess. But I would say the last few years, like I was talking with you about this a little earlier, like the business has just been under such pressure with growth and everything, and I've been so involved in the operations that I feel like in a way I've become a little bit detached with the industry to a certain extent, and so that is like changing sort of as we speak. Like we've made some really big like structural changes in the company and really brought on some good leadership, and so I'm now able to step more into a CEO position where I'm working more on like the vision of the company. And one of like a big goal for myself for 2021 is actually trying to get really back to the industry that we're trying to serve, like step back away from the operations of how to grow a company and get back to like, what are we trying to do as a company? What's our vision and how can we serve the industry more? So I feel like I don't really have a great answer for that. But I would say that, I mean, we've seen a lot of, I mean, just, I'm trying to think of just in general, like we've seen a lot of increase in like demand for our products for flower growers. I think that's a big opportunity. A lot of people are getting into that, which is really cool. And the reality is like so much is changing so quickly. Like if you look at 2020, like the trends that you might have talked about like at the beginning of 2020 were like not, everybody had to like pivot their whole marketing strategies and everything. Like it's just a lot of things have changed. So I think I think the one thing that we definitely have seen is more farms like focusing on, delivering to the customer and not relying on like restaurants and, actually trying to work directly with the consumer. Farm deliveries. I mean, softwares like Local Line and like that have been really helpful in allowing people to do that. So
cool. Well, I
know.
know.
I mean, I could probably answer. I kind of forgot all of the questions, so I got sidetracked.
No,
so,
it's good. It's all good.
Feel free to dive more into that if you want to fine tune it. But
yeah, I would say. I mean, I think I was kind of leaving that open ended because I wanted to sort of see, just let you, let me know what you're thinking. But in terms of I obviously saw all those trends across the country with,
Mhm.
CSAs, direct sales, restaurant sales down,
Yeah.
farmers markets were closing or limited or difficulties there. But one thing I've noticed, I'm in North Carolina and, a lot of people in the South are just grow more under tunnels.
Oh
And I
yeah.
know I'm that obviously you can tell because you're getting more and more orders all the time, but
Yeah.
um, I know that's a huge trend. And I know like Ray Tyler, for example, who's been on the show and he's like, he covered his whole farm in tunnels now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that I don't know why that slipped my mind. That's definitely one we've been seeing. It's crazy how many people have been ordering like large quantities of tunnels. Um, yeah, it really is. Like we've sold a lot of we've had a lot of orders of like 10 plus tunnels. So and we have a lot of return customers that are buying more and more tunnels. Like every year they're adding on to their little fleet of Caterpillar tunnels.
yeah, I
So
know.
it's
Like the
pretty
first time I went to see Elliot and Emma at Fair Share, I was like, "How many tunnels do you have?" Like
yeah.
I was like 20 or something there. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I think they've got 20 of our Caterpillar tunnels and then they have a couple large tunnels.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a huge trend, and I think a lot of people don't when they think about tunnels, they think about season extension, but
Yeah.
like for me, it's the rain protection. We
Yeah.
get way too much rain.
Yep. It's
Um,
all about controlling the variables. Like,
uh,
farming is there's so many variables with weather and I mean, really weather is the biggest one, but just being able to control that and say, you know what, it doesn't matter if it's raining, we're still going to be able to plant and harvest on these dates. Uh, yeah, it's a big one.
all right. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for doing all that you do for the community, and also supporting no-till growers and my work that I do. And I just really appreciate everything. So, thanks so much. And I'll leave links down below for everyone to go check out your products and connect with you guys on social media. And yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and we're super excited about 2021. We've got some big goals, and like I said, for me personally, I'm just excited about getting back into the industry more and learning how we can better serve the farmers. So
Awesome. All right, thanks, Jonathan.
cool.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up tonight. What an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with Jonathan. And there's so many things that happen in the world of farming that you don't think about, and all the products that get designed and are used to help all of us grow out there, and how seriously they take customer feedback and trying to just make the best product as possible. And yeah, it's just awesome. Really happy to have him on. But we'll see you guys in 2 weeks with Shannon and Michael Whammond of Hillview Farms. Really excited about that interview as well. Hopefully, everyone's having a great new year, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a good night.